You're tuned into the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Calendar and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go. Episode 23 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Andrew Yagi, and I'm a real estate agent.
And I'm Kayla Calendar, and I'm a mortgage lender.
Kayla, long time no see.
Been a while, Andy. How have you been?
I've been really good, really busy. Been taking part in one of my favorite fall family pastimes of helping with the fall harvest, sugar beet harvest, namely. So it's been a busy week and a half for us. And Kayla, we were so close to being kind of wrapped up here, and then ended up with some rain, unfortunately.
So what happens in farming life? And the Yagis have sugar beets, huh?
We do. Yep. Among other small grains and the like. It's really, I was talking to a friend of mine just about this today. And as we were kind of catching up a little bit and have been playing phone tag, and he said to me, he said, that's just so weird to think that, sugar beet or sugar comes from a plant, from a beet or sugar cane, depending on how you get your sugar and just how it's just kind of a weird feeling.
You don't really know until you're actually out in the country and you see the fields and you see the things. I think about the people that are from big cities and they don't really know what a corn stalk looks like or what alfalfa, all the things. So that's
right.
Our Midwesternness in us.
Right. Absolutely. No, there's no better way. It's great to live, I think, in a more rural area, with kind of an agrarian base, but yet still having kind of all of the big city amenities and just the ability to get up and go as well. I think it's a great area to live.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah. What's been new with you, Kayla?
Nothing crazy new. Still working, still seeing a lot of people applying, still getting to the lake. Still, being the best fur mom to my 4 pitties, just the usual. So nothing too crazy.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Kayla. What, it's been probably a couple of weeks since we've talked, and, probably not a whole lot to report, but I think one of the biggest questions I still get, and obviously you as a lender get, what are rates doing and where are we at?
And that, yeah. As you can see, for those of us that are watching, you can see today's mortgage rates from, again, Mortgage News Daily. 8% is the 30-year fixed rate as of today, as of this date. And I don't know if you remember last time, but we were at, 7 1/8, 7 1/4. I think one time in the last few podcasts we did, we were at 7.4. So you are seeing rates ticking up, my friends. But, at the end of the day, I still will hone in on this, is that it's not just about the rate, it's about your payment. And as you can see, 8% is scary. But Andy, can we show that slide that you had up of the MBA? So obviously we're getting towards the end of 2023 and you're seeing, what is that, 7.2? I can see on my screen.
7.2. Yep.
And we're nationally at 8. Now that's just a national, average of multiple different companies. But as you can see in 24, we're still seeing some type of forecast of decline. But, if we looked back at one of our podcasts and we look back at the MBA report from even January, February, March, it is not what they predicted. So we don't know if we're going to see this long-term 8%. We don't know. However, I think it's also important to talk about, that's not the only rate out there. There's options for different people. There's different programs. There's first-time home buyer programs. There's VA. There's FHA. And right now, I do a lot of North Dakota housing. North Dakota housing, if you guys can see this, you can get a rate as low as 5.9. So if you're listening to the media and all you hear is 8%, my goodness, that means you're not talking to a lender, because, if you're buying in North Dakota, whether you're a first time or repeat buyer, you can qualify for many different North Dakota housing options. I know, Andy, you're in Minnesota. There's a lot of different Minnesota options, but I just like to point this out because, wow, if you're looking at this, you're getting assistance on some of those programs and you're still getting a lower rate. So I say this because it is so important that you don't just listen to the headlines, you guys. I hope that, you're not shutting this podcast off after I said 8% because at that point you can see we have some options for people. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of education.
Yeah, and you talk about kind of those state-specific housing programs. I actually have a buyer that was referred to me, and we're going to close on a house next week that is using, kind of some Minnesota-specific programs,
Yeah.
to kind of help this buyer get into a house. And it's been really intriguing, kind of watching the market, and as
Mhm.
it's cycled over the past couple of years, and now again it go into a little bit of a slower cycle, partially fueled by higher interest rates, but still really seeing those that are really, really motivated. I've had buyers that come to me like this aforementioned individual, not with a great budget, a single income, and but working with a really creative, great lender, and really working hard. And of course, the buyer's got to want it too, Kayla. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But able to find something, actually a really desirable house at a great price, even got a little bit of a deal on it. And so that's fun to see. On the other end of the spectrum, I've had the privilege of listing, several very nice properties lately, and still seeing multiple offers on these properties. The offers maybe aren't as competitive as they used to be. A buyer may be able to ask for some closing costs. Not people aren't paying, multiples over asking price in
Right.
some cases. But the long and the short of it is, if there are motivated people out there, and if a property is
Mhm.
desirable, boy, I would say if it makes sense for you to buy or sell, reach out and visit with someone.
Mhm. And you're spot on because right now it's all about how you're viewing this, and your perspective is your own reality. And the fact of it is, Andy, you and I talked previously, is we'll hear people on social media or comments say, no one should be buying a house right now. And it's funny because those people are probably not in a position to buy. They don't understand how much equity you can gain. I think on every purchase agreement I've gotten in the last couple of weeks, there's been seller paid closing costs. How wonderful is
Mhm.
that? And so I think that there is opportunity, but at the end of the day, just don't be Googling rates. Don't just be, assuming the payment. Meet with a realtor, meet with a lender, and find what's going to work for you. And if it's not right now, that's okay. It's not for everybody, but at least you've done your homework. No, because as we just pointed out, if you're a first time home buyer or a repeat buyer in the state of North Dakota, wow, you can get some really great deals. So it's important to talk to the experts.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Always good to talk. Never hurts to talk.
Never. And we're good
So
talkers.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and
Mhm.
I appreciate you sending me this article
Yeah.
that talks about Gen Z home buyers. Now, we
Mhm.
talk a lot about buying and selling in general. We've talked a lot about the millennial demographic that, well, I
Yeah.
guess technically you and I belong to, although
Yes,
like we talked, I know I'm kind of an old soul millennial. I think you are as well.
totally.
Um, but so right now the millennials, someone age 33 is the largest group of home buyers out there. But coming up quickly is
Mhm.
Generation Z, or Gen Z. And so I think it's really important, Kayla, and I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's really good, not only for me and my team and other agents that might watch this, but also
Yeah.
for lenders potentially who are seeing this, or even just the consumer in general. Again, especially for those that might be watching this and saying, hey, I'm going to sell my house. And I mean, it's really good to have an understanding of
Mhm.
the profile of all of these different buyer groups, because it's actually quite interesting.
It is. I love these reports. So Kristen Messerly, she does a fabulous job at putting this together, and she's got a panel of people that will assist. But what I love about this is it's put together very beautifully aesthetically, but it also connects the dots about what's up and coming, who's the next buyer, and where are they coming from. And so I think it's important that anyone that's listening to this, whether they are a realtor or a lender, or they're a buyer or seller, that when we look at this report, it is so important to start thinking about how are people looking up Andy Yegi? How are people finding out about Kayla Calendar? And I think that Gen Z goes straight to the social medias. I think that they are well educated. I think they have access to so many more resources than a lot of people before them. And so, what's great about that is they're educated, but what can come with that is misinformation from the media. And so, one of the things that I think is cool is, Andy, can you pull up that report again and we'll take a peek at that? I'd love to kind of walk through this. So, if you scroll down a little bit here, and thank you to everyone that helped with this report. There's a few people that were amazing. Keep going, Andy. There's some really cool stats in here. If you keep going down a little bit there. Okay, so we go through projected home ownership rate. It's going to show you across race and ethnicity. It kind of goes into some statistics, and keep going down just a little bit. But what I want to focus on in this is the challenges that Gen Z has. Because a lot of times we're looking at the market and we're like, oh, there's just, not as much inventory and rates are higher. But there are so many factors that are contributing to people purchasing homes. And so this is based around what is Gen Z experiencing. And as you can see, and I'll walk through this, is what are these barriers? And it's affordability, financial knowledge, and lack of support. So these three pillars, it breaks it down for us in these reports. And so if you can see this, if people are watching or listening, it talks about the cost of living has gone up so much. And I had someone the other day tell me that they're paying $800 a month for rent and it's going up to $1,100. And so the cost of living and just renting, let alone the ability to own a home and what comes with that and the costs. I love that it talks about anxiety, mental health and anxiety. That's a challenge. Personal financial knowledge, like we talked about, and then too much debt. I mean, you've seen it, Andy. You know what the national debt is. I mean, it's insanity now. And so you're having people that are paying higher interest rates on their credit cards. And if they're getting a new car loan, that's higher too. And all of these things are contributing to financial challenges for the Gen Z up and coming buyer.
But Kayla, just really quick. So for those, kind of tuning in and wondering, who is Gen Z? So Gen Z generally age 18 to 24. But then also looking at this report, it actually looks like there maybe is a little bit more hope for Gen Z versus, the younger millennials, which they're defining here as 25 to 34, and older millennials, who I think have struggled a little bit more, with some of these other areas. So for me, it was actually kind of interesting that even though these are all concerns, about debt and everything, maybe a little bit less so than millennials. And, I guess until I saw this, I hadn't really thought about, why Gen Z just seems to be so much more chill than millennials. Why do you think that is, Kayla?
I was thinking about this when I first read the report, and I'm like, is it how we were raised? Is it how we were taught to save so much and make sure you've got this nest egg? Or is it that Gen Z is just, they've got access to maybe different income sources or different, I guess, perspectives? Because I think too that the Gen Z, as you can see on this report, it's a little bit less than the millennials in terms of they feel a little bit more confident in the market, and maybe they're doing their research. Maybe millennials aren't reaching out and doing the research. I know a lot of people my age that don't watch the news, they don't go on social, and they really don't have any access of knowledge at all. I mean, what are your thoughts in terms of?
Well, so it does talk a little bit about Gen Z, likely having some more parental support. And so I was just pondering that a little bit. And, I've seen from a number of millennials, I mean, I think of myself and other people I know who have been just very, very independent. And so I almost wonder if Gen Z is less independent and more dependent on parents or, some of those figures in their life. And as a result, that probably plays a role as well. It also does talk about they're less likely to report challenges, so maybe less likely to share it as openly as, the millennial group. So,
And it could be, and that's, I'm not a Gen Z, but you got to understand, like, a lot of them might be able to live at home with their parents. Maybe they can, they have that support, just like you said. So what I really like about this report, I love that you're scrolling, thank you. We just talked about it. 58% said the cost of renting prevents them from considering homeownership. And that's where I get kind of confused, because I'm like, are they saying that the cost of renting is cheaper? Because we all know that it's going up. So that stat, I almost want to dig more into. What are your thoughts on that?
that is a good question.
You know?
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, right now, we know that rents are through the roof.
Mhm,
Like we've already talked, and it comes down to supply and demand, and
mhm,
everything else. And so, yeah, if rents are through the roof, I mean, obviously, it's putting negative pressure on an individual's income, which might make it more challenging, to save for a down payment, which then, perceptually, home ownership is unattainable.
mhm.
So.
Yeah.
And then the affordability piece, I mean, it's there and it's going to be there. And, I was talking to another agent who is big into development and said, realistically, the only way you're going to solve the affordability issue is probably to go and to build like mobile home parks,
Mm,
which can be very challenging in our
mm,
area of the country, just given the weather, and obviously there are a great deal of them. But
mhm,
just you look at the cost of building even a modular home, and
mhm,
even the manufactured homes that they're putting out today, the cost, I mean, it's high, just like
mhm.
everything else.
It is, and it's one of those things too where, you don't even really understand how much you're spending until you really, like, write it all out, and that can be paralyzing for people. Um,
Absolutely.
and I love that you've got the job instability, and as a lender, lately, anytime that I get an application, it's not super common that I'm seeing someone in a job for more than a year. It's a lot of job jumping lately, and so this stat does not surprise me that 60% of Gen Z stated low levels of income or job instability was a top obstacle to home buying. And so I'm seeing, and I don't know if that's because during COVID, did they switch jobs? Did they go out on their own and become self-employed? And then now, people don't have this, extra income to spend. And so now they're going back to a W-2 job. That's something that I've seen a lot of actually, Andy, when I pull, credit and see applications. And so that's a big one too. Um, and of course, interest rates. But I love this.
Mhm.
51% said high interest rates were a current obstacle to buying a home. And so half of them, and you hear so many people talk about interest rates, but I think Gen Z has a better outlook on that because they didn't get to probably see the low rates that the millennials maybe, missed out on, like we talked about missing that golden opportunity. I think this is kind of what they know.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm sure they're probably cognizant of what rates are and heard of them, but it maybe wasn't relevant at the time. So
Mhm.
something that they
Exactly.
just
Exactly.
just
And as
kind of
you can
passed up.
And as you can see, there's multiple different pieces of information here talking about the flexibility of ownership. What's the flexibility of owning versus renting? I like this one that said 1 in 3 said they were not sure that owning a home was the best way for them to build generational wealth. And that surprises me because whenever I see people's profit and loss, whenever I see their PFS, their personal financial statement, so much of their wealth is in assets such as real estate. So
Mhm.
that one actually surprised me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, any other thoughts on this, Andy? I do want you to keep scrolling because I do want to talk about the how they're getting their education.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of crazy when you sent this to me and I was perusing it at first that it just talked about, the lack of education and perceptually that,
Mhm,
Gen Zers, didn't feel as educated, maybe as millennials or baby boomers or other groups. So
mhm.
that was really interesting.
Well, and I think there's just so much information out there that you hear one thing and you hear another that it's almost, paralysis by analysis for them, maybe. Um, but even down below, it says half of Gen Z believes that you need 20% um, to buy a house. And you don't. We can talk about that another time, but that's where it's so important that you meet with a lender to talk about the options for you.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, and then one of the things I want to talk about too is, if you are a realtor or you're a lender right now, how are you getting your information out there? Because Gen Z is not going to be going to, walking down the street and saying, oh, that's my bank or that's the credit union or mortgage company. They're probably going to going to social media, right? And
Hmm.
one of the things, if you keep scrolling, it talks about how are people getting a little further, but how are people getting their information? And right there, social media is a trusted educational source. 70% of Gen Z is going to Instagram. Instagram. So
Kayla, I see a lot of Gen Z buyers in your future because you're like the queen of Instagram, whereas I'm about ready for the nursing home when it comes to social media. I feel like a
I'll
lot
help
of
you.
days.
Yeah, but you want to know what though, Andy, is you're so good too. Like we're putting out this podcast. This could go to YouTube. You could throw it on Twitter. That's a cool part is that you can put these things in so many places, and you're great at video too. That just surprised me though, 70%. And I wonder where Google lies. I wonder where Google lies.
Google probably isn't much of a thing for Gen Zers,
Hmm.
but it is really interesting to see some of this. Also, again, just backtracking and just saying that hey, they're less likely to turn to a bank or credit union. They obviously don't like the established order. However, they may warm up to it if they find Kayla Calendar on on Instagram. They
On the
may
gram.
say, hey,
Well,
I may be averse to coming into the bank or working with a traditional, but
mhm.
she seems like she's all right. So
Well, you know why it is people go to the internet. They Google, they Instagram, they look things up. And if, banks and credit unions, a lot of them might have certain compliance in order. A lot of them are brick and mortar. And people like Gen Zers want that instant gratification. They want to be able to look at, okay, who is this Kayla girl? Look her up, find her. And I think that maybe some people some, not all, definitely not all, uh, some employees at banks or credit unions, I mean, you might only be able to find their bio on the bank website. And so I think it's just that I want someone that I can go online and reach as well.
well, and that's what people want. They want, to find someone they know, like, and trust. And that's
Mhm.
where, I mean, even like we've talked, doing our podcasts, even though, we're not always the most consistent due to crazy schedules and everything that we do in the communities, among other things. But I
Mhm.
mean, we've had people reach out to us. You've done business as a result of people finding you here, and likewise.
Mhm.
So it's just a matter of, hey, how do you want to go? We all want to serve people. We're here because we want to serve, but go find the people that want to work with you. You don't have to, go through the traditional mediums, as you shouldn't, because even again, when we look at what Gen Z says about, a bank or credit union, traditionally you got the deck stacked
Mhm.
against you. But you know what, Kayla? So do real estate agents, because I
Mhm.
mean, you look at this stat as well, and again, right away it says right here, only 58%, 58% of Gen Zers trust a loan officer, 77% of millennials do, and then 67 and 82% respectively of real estate agents. So again, you talk about what are ways to earn that know, like, and trust and move that thermometer,
Mhm.
in our favor. It's, to find different ways to connect with them.
Well, and the thing is too, I had a client call me the other day and she said, I was told that I need to watch out for lenders because they're only in it for themselves. And I kind of giggled and I'm like, she has no idea who she's talking to yet. She's going to end up being my best friend. And the fact of the matter is this market has created those people that are transactional in real estate, realtors and lenders to get out of the game because they are not showing empathy. They're not showing care. And clients can feel that. They can truly tell when you're just trying to sell them. And so I feel like this market has benefited our buyers and our clients because you're getting the real deal with people that truly are in this in these difficult times. They're
Yeah.
seeing it through for a reason.
Absolutely. And, I'm seeing it too, working with other agents where the service and the communication just is not there when I'm
Mhm.
having to do the other agents work for them and, communicate with the lender that their buyer's using. It's, I shake my head, it's my job to get the transaction done and make sure my clients are well served. Even if the other party, is not reciprocating. So,
Mhm.
very,
Yep.
very, very, very interesting, Kayla. I think, for me, it's been, we sit here and, a client is a client, or, a potential individual that's looking to be served. Oftentimes it's easy to not really directly think about, their demographic.
Mhm.
Although I guess subconsciously we maybe do a little bit, but I know that's really helped me, in learning more about Gen Z. I'm sure it was helpful for you when you came about it. And hopefully it's been helpful for those, listening or watching today, just to get a little greater insight.
Mhm. I wonder if if it's millennials or Gen Zers who listens to podcasts more. I'd be curious.
That's a good question.
I want to look up that stat. You're probably already on it. You're Andrew Yegi. You're probably already on it.
I'm not, but what demographic listens to podcasts more
The
frequently?
most.
So we can look that up, Kayla, on the
Oh,
fly here.
I'm just curious, right? Because how many people are getting their information from podcasts? I know I get a ton of information. Thank you, Ed Milet.
Let's see. We got to look. Let's look at the Pew Research Center. Oh, here we go.
Perfect.
2/3 of adults age 18 to 29 have listened to a podcast. So there's that, Gen Z / younger millennial, 67%, and it starts to fall off precipitously.
Yep.
So
Interesting.
that's very interesting. I guess that's maybe almost about what we would expect,
Probably.
based on what we saw today. So
Yeah. Amen. Well, good wrap, Andy. I hope that this was beneficial to those even that are in our industry that are working like us as salespeople, but also for those, Gen Z buyers, it almost allows us to kind of understand where they're coming from too.
yep, absolutely. So, well, Kayla, I think that's a wrap for episode 23. Thanks for that delightful presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
I will if you will.
We'll see you.
Bye.